You've always been my backup plan, not my first choice. You know that, right? That's what my girlfriend told me, to my face. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I just walked out calmly. Fast forward 4 years later, I've got a wife, a kid, a house, and she's alone, texting me about how she threw it all away. Hey, Reddit. Figured I'd finally put this one out there. It's a long story, but it's worth it. Let's just say I learned the hard way what happens when someone thinks they can upgrade their life at your expense. I kept my cool, played it smart, and watched the whole thing flip upside down on them. So, buckle up. Even now, it still feels unreal when I think about it. This goes back a few years. Back then, I, David, 36, male, was working as a warehouse supervisor. Not the most glamorous job in the world, but I was good at it. I had crews under me, I managed schedules, made sure shipments got where they needed to be, and when problems came up, people came to me to fix them. That part one loved, being the guy who solved the problems nobody else wanted to touch.At night. I was studying for my logistics certification. My plan was simple, move up into management, then eventually consulting. I didn't care about showing off or chasing trends. I cared about building something solid, something stable, something I could rely on.At the time. I was living with my girlfriend, Ava, 33, female. She worked as a marketing coordinator and hopped between startups like it was a sport. Every few months, it was a new company, a new big idea, new co-workers she swore were going to change the world. I didn't really get her world, but I didn't need to. I let her do her thing, and I did mine. We rented a duplex. From the yard, nothing special. Cheap siding, patchy lawn, a driveway barely wide enough for my truck. But inside, we made it look good. Most of our furniture came from estate sales. That was our weekend thing. Every Saturday, we'd hit a few spots. I'd look for pieces with good bones, oak tables, old armchairs, desks that just needed some love. I'd load them into the truck, take them home, and spend the weekend in the garage sanding and fixing. Ava picked out fabrics and colors. We had our roles, and it worked. That garage was my shop. Always smelled like stain, glue, sawdust. My tools lined up on a pegboard I built, extension cords hanging from hooks, an old radio in the corner. I'd be bent over a piece, sweat running down my back, while Ava sat nearby flipping through swatches or Pinterest boards. By the end of the day, we'd have something that looked brand new. On our 5th anniversary, I gave her a promise ring. We found it at an estate sale. Simple, vintage, nothing flashy. We got it resized and she wore it every day. To me, that was the start of us moving toward marriage, just waiting until we were more established. And I pulled my weight, more than my weight, honestly. When her car broke down, I drove her to her networking events. While she was inside shaking hands, I sat at a coffee shop with my books open, running through formulas and case studies. When she needed her slides cleaned up for a presentation, I did it. When she wanted to take an expensive online course, I picked up extra weekend shifts to cover it. She never had to worry about a backup, because I was always there. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't desperate for approval. I didn't do it to be walked on. I did it because I thought that's what a strong relationship looked like. She handled the flashy networking and creative stuff. I handled the foundation. In my head, that balance made sense. We talked about marriage sometimes. Nothing concrete, but the plan was there. Get stable first, then buy a house. I wanted a garage big enough for a real workshop. She wanted a home office. The duplex wasn't supposed to be permanent. It was a step, but after a while, it started to feel like home. I didn't sit around doubting anything. I was too busy grinding. That certification wasn't easy, but I treated it like a second job. Flashcards, notes, practice tests. Meanwhile, Ava would vent about her jobs, say she kept missing opportunities. I told her she'd make it big one day, and I meant it. I actually believed she had talent. From my side, nothing looked shaky. I had a stable job, steady progress, a home that felt like ours, and a girlfriend who I thought was on the same page. But Ava's world started moving faster than mine. She got invited to more mixers, meetups, industry nights in San Francisco and Palo Alto. Half the time I didn't even know what these events were. Tech founders, angel investors, brand launches. To her, All opportunity. To me, just rooms full of people trying to impress each other. Still, I didn't knock it. Then she started talking more about the guys she met. Not direct comparisons, but slipping it in. Brian just closed Series B funding. He's only 27. Lee got his girlfriend a Bahamas trip for her birthday. I'd be balancing the checkbook while she dropped those lines. I'd nod, then suggest maybe planning a Yosemite camping trip. She'd make a face, like those weren't even in the same universe. I didn't argue. My career was steady. I was moving forward, though I knew my lane. And then came Jet. She met him at one of those Palo Alto mixers. From what I gathered, he was an interior designer who flipped high-end properties, drove a white Tesla, lived in Marin. Instagram that looked like a catalog, perfect coffee setups, stage houses, modern everything. Ava came back from that event lit up in a way I hadn't seen since our early days working on furniture. Except this time, the spark wasn't about me. She started dropping his name into conversations. Jet really understands design on another level. She'd gesture at the furniture we restored together like it was amateur hour. Jet says there's more success if I move beyond thrift shops. I let it slide. People talk big at networking events. I figured she'd move past it, but then our weekends changed. Where we used to hit estate sales together, now she was collaborating with Jet. Saturday strategy meetings, Sunday property visits. She'd leave early, come back late, hair smelling like expensive cologne I didn't own. I was never invited. Apparently, there was no space for me in that part of her life. Then the promised ring disappeared. I noticed at dinner one night, sitting at the table we'd restored together. I asked about it. She said it got in the way with fabric swatches. Rings weren't practical for design work. That was it. No conversation. Just gone. Her style changed, too. She used to wear jeans, T-shirts, band hoodies while we worked. Suddenly, she was in flowing neutral that matched Jet's Instagram aesthetic. She said it was about being professional. The language shifted, too. I'd talk about my certification, new supply chain software, management opportunities. She'd roll her eyes. You think like a handyman, not like someone who actually builds something creative. It wasn't that I was offended. I knew my strengths. But it was the first time she framed what I did as less than BY full. Weekends together were gone. I worked overtime, studied, trained. She was in Sausalito with Jet. Came home glowing about his ideas. Jet says I should think bigger. Jet thinks I've been limiting myself. Every sentence had his name in it. I wasn't blind. I saw it, but I didn't fight it. I'm not the guy who begs for attention. I stayed solid. Wake, study, sleep, repeat. I figured either she'd come back to her senses, or she wouldn't. But the distance was real. You can only ignore so many late nights, new clothes, and disappearing rings before you put it together. She was chasing something else, and I wasn't part of it. Still, I thought maybe we'd stabilize. I thought the certification, the promotion, the house plan, maybe that would ground us. But it was obvious by then she was already looking past me. One night, after a double shift, I came home tired but expecting the usual, Ava on the couch, laptop open, maybe scrolling through Pinterest. Instead, I opened the bedroom door and froze. The room looked like a store display. 2 brand-new leather suitcases on the bed. Inside, stacks of expensive clothes I'd never seen. That I stood in the doorway, boots still on. Going somewhere. I asked, calm, like I already knew. She didn't even flinch. Didn't look guilty. Just kept folding another blouse, careful, like she was prepping for a photo shoot. Actually, I'm moving in with Jet. Said it plain, like she was telling me we were out of milk. I repeated it back just to hear it. Moving in with Jet. Yes. She said, we've been together for months, so obviously the next step is moving in. He's giving me a full partnership in his business, something you could never do. He actually has room for me to work on real projects, not just squeezing junk into corners. Her tone was cold. No apology, no hesitation. Like she was telling her landlord she was breaking a lease. Months, I asked. Not really a question. My mind rearranged the timeline. Every collab, every weekend, every late-night call. It all fit. She finally looked at me, and her face didn't show guilt. It showed pity. David, you've always been my backup plan, not my first choice. You know that, right? Blunt, rude, condescending, like she was teaching me a lesson I should have already known. Explain that, I said. Still calm, she sat on the edge of the bed, surrounded by a new wardrobe, and crossed her arms. You were basically training wheels. David. Safe, boring, predictable. I stayed until I knew what I really wanted. And Jet can offer me things you can't even touch. Training wheels, I repeated. Yes, don't act shocked. You're a good guy, but let's be honest. You fix things. You don't create. You don't have ambition like Jet does. With him, I get financial security, real creative chances, a lifestyle. With you, it's camping trips and old furniture. And then she smirked. Actually smirked, like all of that was beneath her, the way she dismissed 6 years of shared weekends, plans, sweat, and work like it was nothing. It didn't even make me angry. It just made things very, very clear. So 6 years was just you killing time. I asked, she laughed. Light, careless. David, those weren't real plans. They were comfortable fantasies. You talk about bigger garages and certifications. That's not the same as building something big. That's small thinking. Jet is on another level. He actually matches my ambition. He gets me. You never did. The whole picture clicked into place. This wasn't sudden. She'd been planning her exit for months. New wardrobe, new lifestyle, new man. I was just a placeholder until the better offer came through. You're reliable, sure, but you're not what I actually want. I'm not going to hold back just to keep you happy. Right, I said, steady. So that's it. 6 years and I was just practice. Don't be dramatic, she snapped, rolling her eyes. We've been growing apart. You had to see that. I've outgrown this. All of this. She waved her hand at the duplex like it was a cheap motel. And you have to admit, what Jet and I have is more exciting than anything you and I built. You mean while you were sneaking around behind my back? I asked, her face hardened. Don't twist it. It's not sneaking around. It's moving on. You're too stuck in your little warehouse world to see what's possible. I need someone who can elevate me. You were a good step, but you're not a final destination. The arrogance in her voice was unreal. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't sorry. She was proud of herself for upgrading. That I looked at her one more time and realized I didn't know this person. Not really. She wasn't the girl who sat on a stool in my garage handing me sandpaper. She was a stranger who had already replaced me in her head months ago. Okay, I said, and turned to leave, her head jerked up, surprised I wasn't begging. That's it? You're just walking away. Yeah, I said, you already made your choice. I don't beg for leftovers. She tried again, sharper this time. David, don't be immature. We can have an adult conversation about this. You don't have to storm out. I opened the door, grabbed my keys. No need for conversation. You're packed. You're leaving. That's it. Unbelievable, she muttered behind me. You act like I blindsided you. I gave you 6 years. Be grateful for that. Most guys would kill to have someone like me, even temporarily. That one made me laugh. Then I'll let Jet enjoy the honor. I didn't look back. I walked straight out, got in my truck, and drove east to my brother Andrew's place in Stockton. I didn't slam doors, didn't raise my voice. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a scene. Andrew opened the door, saw my face, and didn't ask questions. He grabbed a couple sodas, handed me one, and we went out back to look at his half-built deck. That weekend, I helped him rebuild it. Power tools, boards, screws, no big conversations, just work. That's how I reset, by producing something useful instead of wasting breath. By Monday, I knew what I had to do. I drove back to the duplex while Ava was at work. The place already felt different, like it didn't belong to me anymore. I didn't waste time. I packed only what mattered: clothes, my books, my certification materials, and the toolbox my dad gave me when I first moved out years back. Everything else stayed: furniture, dishes, decorations. None of it mattered anymore. Before I left, I set my house key on the counter with a small note. Good luck with everything. No begging, no emotion, just closure. That same afternoon, I signed a lease on a small apartment near the warehouse. Nothing special, just a folding table, an air mattress, and my laptop. That was all I needed. That I blocked Ava on everything. Phone, email, socials, and deleted every trace of her. She made her decision, and I wasn't sticking around as her backup plan. 6 years. And she thought I was just practice. Fine. Let her test a real thing. I wasn't wasting another second. After I moved out, life got quieter and more focused. No drama, no distractions, just work and my certification. I built my days into a routine. The logistics certification wasn't easy. Lots of math, inventory modeling, supply chain case studies. But I treated it like a second job. Ava used to drain my energy with constant complaints. Now I had total quiet. That quiet let me push harder than I ever thought I could. 6 months later, I passed, with top scores on every section. I'd already been shadowing our company's internal consulting team and fixing 2 client sites on my own time, so everyone knew I was doing the work. HR just needed the cert to rubber stamp it. A week later, my manager called me in and made it official. Regional logistics consultant on our company's internal consulting team. The IT came with a serious pay raise and a different level of respect. Before, I was the guy who fixed immediate problems. Now I was the one mapping systems, finding inefficiencies, redesigning distribution networks. People asked for my input instead of just handing me problems to solve. That was the upgrade I'd been grinding toward. With a promotion and extra money, I didn't waste time. I started house hunting. I'd been stacking saving for years and already had a mortgage pre-approval sitting in my inbox. The raise just bumped the limit. Moving fast wasn't luck. It was paperwork that I wanted space. I found a small house in a quiet neighborhood with a detached garage. The second I saw the garage, I knew it was mine. I put in an offer that afternoon, and the pre-approval made it a clean, quick close. The garage was big enough for a proper workshop, concrete floors, good wiring for power tools. I signed the papers and moved in within a month. Setting up the garage was the best part. I installed pegboards, mounted hooks, labeled drawers, bought new shelving. I built a rolling workbench, organized my tools by category, and finally had room to spread out projects without bumping into everything. No one was criticizing the setup, no one rolling their eyes. Just me, my tools, and the work. Even with a new job and a new house, I didn't let myself get isolated. My brother Andrew suggested I get involved somewhere outside work. I wasn't going to join some networking group, but volunteering at the local animal shelter made sense. That's where I met Abby. She was a veterinary technician who volunteered her skills on weekends. She wasn't flashy. Simple clothes, hair in a ponytail, no fake attitude. She actually worked, bathing nervous rescues, treating cuts, calming dogs that didn't trust anyone. She didn't just pose for pictures. She got her hands dirty. Over the next few months, we ended up paired on a lot of shifts. Things developed slow but steady. Dinner at my place turned into weekends together. She saw the garage workshop and thought it was impressive instead of blue-collar. She asked me to explain how I'd reorganize a client's distribution network and actually listened like it mattered. No eye rolls. No pretending she was above it. After a year and a half, Abby moved in. It wasn't forced. It wasn't dramatic. She brought her own furniture. I had mine, and it blended without fights. She didn't try to redesign the house or tell me my taste was outdated. She respected what I had built. That was new for me. The house finally felt like a home that wasn't temporary. I had the job I wanted, the workshop I always pictured, and someone beside me who wasn't looking past me for the next upgrade. Everything lined up because I made it line up myself, not because I was waiting on anyone else's permission. So, 2 years into my relationship with Abby, I decided it was time to lock things down. I'd been planning it for a while. I bought a ring, nothing over the top, just clean and solid, and kept it hidden in my desk drawer until I knew the right time. That summer, we planned a trip to Lake Tahoe. I didn't waste time. I pulled the ring from my jacket and asked her to marry me. Simple as that. She said yes straight away. No hesitation. No overthinking. That's exactly how I like things, though we didn't drag it out with a long engagement or some massive production. Within 3 months, we had the wedding in my backyard. Andrew was my best man. Her sister stood for her. The whole thing was wrapped up by sundown. We spent less than some people blow on flowers, and it was 10 times more real than the shows people put on to impress strangers. Work stayed steady. As a regional logistics consultant, I spent more time at client sites than in the warehouse. I'd map out their distribution networks, point out where they were bleeding money, and design systems to fix it. It wasn't glamorous, but the paychecks cleared, and I had companies depending on me for solutions. That was a kind of respect I wanted. People calling me because they trusted I'd get it right. About 8 months after the wedding, Abby told me she was pregnant. It was a straightforward announcement. We went to the doctor, got the first ultrasound, and they handed us a grainy black and white print. We pinned it to the fridge with a dull bone magnet one of the shelter volunteers had given us. That same night, I cleared space in the garage and started sketching plans for a crib. I wasn't going to buy one. I wanted something sturdy that would last. I bought lumber, measured everything twice, cut pieces, sanded edges. Every evening after work, I'd put in an hour or two, base, rails, brackets, sanding, more sanding, then dry fits. By the time I started staining, I could already see it taking shape. Abby would check in and nod her approval. No complaints about sawdust in the garage. She liked that I was building it myself. That same month, Andrew called me out of nowhere. I knew the tone from his first words. It was a voice he used when he had a piece of gossip he couldn't wait to drop. "You're not going to believe what I just heard about Ava," he said as I leaned back in my chair. "Go ahead." He texted me a link to an early business journal piece and a public filing. Turns out Jet wasn't what Ava thought he was. All that property flipping and design business talk was mostly smoke. What he was really running was a front for fraud. He had Ava signing paperwork for shell companies, acting like they were real partnerships. With her marketing background, she made the projects look credible. He used her contacts to approach startups and angle for investment money. Then the funds were routed to accounts offshore. The piece said one startup finally caught on when their seed funding disappeared faster than it should have. They brought in auditors, who brought in investigators. Once the FBI got involved, Jet vanished, packed up, disappeared. No forwarding address. Ava was left holding contracts with her name on them. Jet didn't stay gone. 2 weeks later, the U.S. Marshals grabbed him outside Reno. And once his lawyer showed up, he started cooperating to save his own skin. The numbers weren't small, 500,000 at least. Wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. Serious federal charges. And since her signature was on the paperwork, she looked complicit. Whether she knew the full picture or not, by then, Ava had already lost her job. No company wants someone under investigation on their payroll. She burned through her savings on legal fees trying to stay afloat. But lawyers aren't cheap, and she didn't have Jet to back her anymore. She was sinking fast. Between the article and the filing, the breakdown was all there, which companies were involved, how the auditors traced the money, and which agencies were circling. I let him finish, then went back to sanding the crib rails I'd been working on. My only comment was, figures, because really, it fit. She wanted an upgrade, and she got one, just not the kind she was expecting. Meanwhile, life on my side stayed steady. Doctor appointments for Abby, setting up the nursery, turning the spare room into a baby prep space instead of an office. I worked with my clients during the week, fixed up the crib at night, volunteered at the shelter on Saturdays. No chaos, no breakdowns, no scams, just progress. That's a difference. She gambled on a man who sold her a fantasy. I built my life on real actions, piece by piece. Not long after Andrew told me about Ava's mess with Jet, the calls started. Unknown numbers, random hours, texts that opened casual, like we hadn't gone 3 years without speaking. The first one just said, "Hey, how have you been? Just checking in." I blocked it. The next came from a Nevada area code. I've been thinking a lot about the past. Would love to reconnect. Blocked again. She kept trying. Fake social media accounts. 2. One even claimed to be a veterinary supply company and sent Abby a friend request on Instagram. The account had 0 posts, and the only people it followed were me and Abby. We laughed, but I still told Abby to block it immediately. Ava wasn't subtle, and she wasn't smart about covering her tracks. As weeks passed, her tone shifted. Messages went from friendly to desperate. "I know you hate me, but I don't deserve what's happening." Another one, 2 a.m., You always believed in me, David. You know I'd never commit fraud. I was used. I need someone like you in my corner right now. She even put a number on it. $20,000 for legal fees. Worded like it was nothing, like I should just hand it over because of our history. I never replied. Every number that came in, I blocked. Every fake account. Deleted. I wasn't about to give her an inch. Abby knew the whole story now, and she didn't even flinch when I explained the past. That's what Ava never understood. She thought she could wedge herself back into my life with some half-baked leverage, but there was nothing left to wedge up. By the time the baby shower rolled around, Ava's attempts were just background noise. Abby and I planned a simple backyard setup. String light between the oak trees, borrowed folding chair from Andrew, long tables with disposable tablecloths, trays of food ordered in. Andrew handled the playlist, half decent, half questionable, but it was his job, so I let it ride. Grill near the garage, me keeping things moving, burgers, chicken, hot dogs, guests filtering in, dropping off gifts. Abby's sister ran the unwrapping station. IT was calm. The kind of event where you know everyone actually want to be there. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. I figured it was a late guest or maybe a delivery. I walked around to the front of the house, opened the door, and there she was. Ava. She looked nothing like the woman I remembered. Thin, tired, hair flat, unstyled, makeup smudged. She wore a sweater and jeans that looked pulled from a donation bin. Her eyes darted past me into the house, like she expected Jet's version of a lifestyle instead of the family backyard we had. "Hi, David," she said, soft voice, like playing vulnerable might help. "I know this is unexpected, but I need to talk to you." "How did you get this address?" That was my first concern. "I hired a private investigator," she answered, like it was normal to admit that. "Please, I'm in serious trouble and I don't have anyone else to turn to. Jet destroyed my life. I need help from someone who actually knows who I really am." The delusion was obvious. She thought her so-called safety net was going to swoop in now that she had nothing left. "What do you want?" I asked, flat, blocking the doorway. "I need money for legal fees," she said immediately. No small talk this time. 20,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but given everything between us, I thought maybe you could help me get through this. After all, you supported me before. You believed in me before. Surely that means something. "You came to my house during my wife's baby shower to ask me for money," I said. Her face twitched. She hadn't expected me to call it out. That bluntly, "David," I realized I made mistakes. I chose wrong. I was confused back then, but what we had was real. I know that now. I could be part of your life again. Maybe even help with a baby. Don't shut me out. By then, Abby had walked up behind me, hand resting on her stomach. She looked at Ava like she was just some stranger. "Hi," Abby said politely. "I'm Abby. Are you looking for someone?" I put my arm around Abby's shoulders. "This is my wife. Ava, my ex from years ago." Ava's eyes flicked to Abby's belly, then back to me. "She's beautiful," she muttered, voice flat, then sharper. "How far along are you?" 7 months, Abby answered, steady as ever. "We're having a girl." "Congratulations," Ava said, though the tone didn't match the word. She turned back to me quickly. "David, could we talk privately? There are things your wife probably doesn't know. Things about our relationship she should hear." The delusion on full display. She thought she had some hidden card to play. "My wife knows everything important," I said, "including the fact that you called me your safety net and said I wasn't the real thing." Abby didn't even flinch. She just squeezed my hand. Ava's face flushed. Bluff called in one line. "That's not fair," she snapped. "I was young, confused, scared. I made mistakes, but I never stopped caring about you. We can fix this. You don't have to let me drown." Her desperation was rising, her voice getting louder. Guests in the backyard had definitely noticed a shift. "You need to leave," I said calmly. "This is my home, my family. You're not welcome here." "I'm not leaving until you agree to help me," she shot back, eyes wide, voice cracking. "You owe me that much after everything we had. You can't just abandon me." She tried to push past me into the house. I stepped forward, blocking the doorway with my body. Last warning. Ava, leave now. She shook her head, muttering something about how I'd regret it. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed 911. I'm calling the police to report trespassing. I said that I latched the door, stayed on the porch. She crossed her arms, face blank, like it hadn't crossed her mind I'd actually call her bluff. Within 10 minutes, 2 officers pulled up. They separated us, took our IDs, asked what happened. I told them she wasn't invited and refused to leave. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said, no, just get her off my property. They issued a formal trespass warning, had me sign it. She kept arguing after 2 chances to leave. So they walked her to the cruiser while I finished paperwork, drove her off, released her at the end of the block. No arrest, no charges, just a paper trail I wanted. Back through the house into the yard, Abby with her sister, guess pretending nothing had happened. Andrew gave me a look. He'd seen it all. I nodded back. That was the end of it. After the baby shower incident, Ava was officially finished in my life. Cops had walked her off the curb, and I figured that was the last I'd see of her. But Ava wasn't wired to quit that easy. For the next week, new numbers popped up again. A prepaid phone, a Google Voice account, messages inconsistent. 1 minute she loved me, always had. The next she threatened to make sure people knew the truth if I didn't help her. The truth being what? That she cheated? That she called me practice? That she got burned by Jet? She had nothing. Abby and I were locked in. We ignored everything. When Ava called our regional office line pretending to be a client, I had the receptionist flag her and block her attempts. She even sent a handwritten letter, 3 pages of messy rambling. I read the first sentence, something about fate and second chances, and dropped it straight in the shredder. The seal came 2 months later. Andrew sent me a link to a local news article, fraud charges, felony theft, conspiracy. Jet's name and Ava's name side by side. By the time it hit, he was already talking to agents, lining up a corporation deal. They tried to skim client money into a fake consulting firm. Jet set it up. Ava signed her name as guarantor. Sloppy, arrogant. Now both looking at prison time. The article even quoted an investigator. These suspects operated with overconfidence and no real cover. That line told me Ava hadn't changed at all. Still entitled, still convinced she was untouchable. Didn't feel relief. I didn't feel pity either. Just final. The door closed. She played every card wrong and finally ran out of hands to bluff with. Meanwhile, Abby and I stayed focused on life, finished the nursery, crib against the far wall, soft blue paint, stuffed animals stacked in the corner, closet full from shower gifts, work steady, nothing flashy, Abby's pregnancy smooth, doctor appointments all clear. When our daughter was born, I stood in that hospital room holding her, Abby resting beside me, and thought how glad I was. Ava was gone. There was no way I'd ever let someone like her circle around his family. 9 months later, Jet's plea deal hit the docket. His cooperation made public. Ava left holding most of the blame. In court, she tried the same victim act, said she was manipulated. Nobody bought it. The judge even cut her off mid-sentence. Her choices spoke for themselves, fitting. She'd spent years thinking she was above consequences, using people until they ran dry. With Jet, she thought she'd hit the jackpot. With me, she thought she had a safety net waiting forever. In reality, all she had were bad decisions stacked until everything collapsed. I never answered another text, never acknowledged her letters to me. Ava was just someone I used to know, a chapter that closed the day I met Abby. Life moved forward, clean, steady. And if Ava ever thought she'd still find a way back in, well, prison walls don't leave much room for daydreaming.